Hey everyone, it's Lynn again, and I'm back in my kitchen. How y'all doing today? It's kind of a bleak gray day outside here, and I thought I'd bake. Well, not really bake, but ever since I've got the power grill, I've been trying different things and trying to make healthy foods. So I had an idea. I tried it out a few days ago, and I thought I would share it with you. It's all my makings. I've always been kind of inventive in the kitchen, and so what I've tried to do is what I'll call rustic Primavera pizza made on the power grill. For our dry ingredients, we're going to need 1.25 cups of all-purpose flour. I don't know whether you've ever heard of Hudson cream flour, but it's from a very great little mill in Hudson, Kansas, a town of about 150 people. And I can tell you, this is one of the best flours that I've ever used. So if you get a chance to find it, get you a bag and try it out. We're also going to need 1/4 cup of flour to add in and then also use to roll out the dough. We're going to use 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. For the liquid, we're going to need 3/4 cup of cold water. And for the fats, we're going to use a tablespoon of olive oil. I've added all of the dry ingredients to a mixing bowl. I still like my old Pyrex bowl set and still use it especially when I'm baking. So we're going to mix it all up so the baking powder and salt get all integrated with the flour. And I'm going to mix it up a little bit. Now I'll add in the 3/4 cup of cold water. And I'll start to stir that together, mix that together. I'm using this spatula to first work it all together while the water is still pretty wet. And I can get the flour mixed in and just work it around. I'm going to sprinkle a little more of the flour, of the extra flour from the 1/4 cup onto the ball of dough. And I'm also going to flour my hands just a little bit so that the dough won't stick to my hands so much. And I'm going to get the flour mixed in, the new flour that I've added. And then I'm going to start working the ball of dough. It's a pretty soft dough at this moment. But before I finish, I will have added in most of this 1/4 cup of extra flour. So I want to get in all of the extra flour that's on the edge and just work it with my hand for a while. As you can see, I've got the dough worked into a nice elastic ball, and it's no longer sticking to my hands when I knead it. I'll let you take a look at the dough here to kind of see the consistency of it. I'm gonna make sure it's nice and round. I'm gonna put it back in the bowl, and I'm going to cover it up and set it aside while I make the sauce and toppings for the pizza. For the sauce, we're going to use 4 Roma tomatoes, 1 clove of garlic, several leaves of basil, a few sprigs of oregano that I just picked out of the garden, and 1 green onion. If you're picky about seeds and skins, you can peel the tomatoes and take the seeds out. I'm just going to make sure these are all clean the onion, take the leaves off of the sprigs of the oregano as well as the basil, clean the garlic, and I'm going to throw them all into the food processor. I've pulsed up all of the veggies to use for the salsa, and as you can see, it looks really good. I've left it so that it's sort of chunky, and it smells really good too. One of the things I did forget was that I had some hatch peppers in the refrigerator, and I wanted to use them in the salsa as well. So I used about this much of the hatch pepper. Now let's take a look at what we're going to use for the toppings. For the toppings, I'm going to saute and caramelize some onions that I have sliced up. I'm going to use about a cup of low moisture, part skim milk mozzarella cheese that's all shredded. And then I'm going to finally add a few more of the basil leaves for decoration. So I'm going to saute the onions before I cook the salsa, so let's get sauteing them. Okay, I brought over my onions to the stovetop, and I also have my Copper Chef skillet, which was also a Christmas present last year, which I also really love because it comes out so clean in the dishwasher. If you do cook something that does stick a little bit that the dishwasher won't take off, one of those non-scratch pads will certainly get it off. So let's just add a little of the Greek olive oil to the copper skillet. We're going to get it hot. Now I'm going to add the onions. The onions are cooked now, and I'm going to set them aside. I'm going to put them in a bowl and set them aside to use when I'm ready. And as you can see, the pan has got a lot of stuck on from the onions, but I'm going to use a little bit of water with a little bit of rice wine vinegar, and that will help deglaze the pan. And it'll give some of that good taste to the sauce. Okay? So I've got my sauce that I've still got in the food processor bowl, and I'm going to put that into the copper skillet. You can see it makes a lot. I might have more than I need for the pizza that I'm going to make, but it'll save, and I can use it for some other purpose. The salsa is starting to cook down, and as you can see, by using this silicone fork, I've been able to clean off the bottom of the skillet almost all of the part that had stuck on from the cooking the onions. I'm going to let this continue to cook down. I want the liquid to cook out as much as possible so we can make a fairly good sauce, but it will still be a kind of rustic sauce. It's not going to be a thin sauce. So I'm just going to let this cook down, and I'm going to roll out the dough. I like many kinds of cooking, but I don't know whether there's anything that brings out the sentimental value as bread making. Here I've got the breadboard that was my mom's that she used for so many years and had out on the farm. So it brings back a lot of memories to me, and especially when I start working the dough. This rolling pin she gave to me so many years ago when I was first living on my own, and I don't know how long it had been around. As you can see, the handle is taped together, but I didn't do the taping. It's been taped like that since I've had it. So let's take a look at the dough itself. I've got it covered up, and as you can see, it doesn't rise much because it doesn't have yeast in it, but it does change its form a little bit. So we're going to put some flour on the breadboard. Spread it around with our hands. We're also going to flour the rolling pin a little bit so that it doesn't stick. And then we'll take the ball of dough out of the bowl. Of course, it's stuck a little bit onto the bottom. I probably could have oiled it a little bit with some olive oil or added a little bit more flour, but I just didn't want to. So, as you can see, it's a nice elastic dough, and I'm going to work it and roll it out into a oval shape or an oblong shape because I want it to fit onto the grill of the power grill. I've got the power grill over here on the counter, and I am going to make the pizza indoors. Usually, if you followed me, I do the grilling outside, but I found that with the pizza, it doesn't make much more smell than maybe toast in the toaster, so I'm making the pizza inside. So I'm going to turn up the temperature. Oh, I have to turn the power on first, okay. And I'm going to turn up the temperature all the way to the highest setting, but I am not going to turn on the fan, okay? And this way my grill is going to get hot. So let's continue rolling out the dough. As I told you, I want to make it either a rectangle or egg shaped. I want it to fit into the power grill. And make a little ridge along the edge to keep the sauce and the toppings on it. I put my hand down close to the grill and it's pretty hot now. So I'm going to turn the temperature down just one notch to 390. I'm going to spray the dough, the crust, or soon to be crust, with a little bit of the spray olive oil. If you don't have the spray, you can certainly use a brush and just brush on the olive oil. Not too much. I probably got a little more than I wanted, but it'll be fine. Okay, I've got the dough on the power grill, and as you can see, it was a little bit too large. I probably could have rolled it out a little bit thinner and it would have been fit a little bit better, but this is going to be fine. I'm going to let it cook on one side and then I'm going to turn it several times. The pizza crust is starting to cook. I put the lid back on the grill, but I've left it open about an inch so that the steam can release. And as you can see, the sauce is really cooking down. I'm going to turn it off. I've got the onions ready, I've got the basil ready, and I've got the mozzarella cheese to add. I've turned the pizza crust over one time. It is a 2 spatula task, and but the crust does firm up really nicely. It did get a little bit burnt there, but as we say, we're making a rustic pizza, so this will be a little bit rustic. If I had turned it just a little bit more quickly, it wouldn't have gotten that dark. I've turned over the crust again, and it's easier to turn as it gets more done. What we're looking to do is try to get the moisture cooked out of the crust, and as you can see, it releases onto the top of the lid, so that's an indication, but also by looking at it. Now, because of the location of the heating element inside the grill, it does take the ends longer to get done. Also, the ends are a little bit thicker because I curled them in to try to make an edge for the pizza. The crust is baked now, and I'm ready to put on the salsa and the cheese and the other toppings. So I put the salsa on, and it almost hid the dark spot there. I won't tell anyone if you won't. Now I've got the cheese and the basil leaves, and I'm going to put the lid back on so that it will melt down the cheese. Now I've added the onion topping, and I'm going to put the lid back on for it all to heat up a little bit more. Now, one thing to remember is that any kind of toppings or sauce that you use, you're going to want to cook. Anything that you put on top is not going to cook as it would in the oven. So anything that you do on the grill, it needs to be cooked beforehand. The basil leaves, of course, they'll wilt down, but the rest needs to be cooked. And also remember that use what you've got in the refrigerator. You don't have to use the veggies that I used. Choose what you'd like. Maybe you don't like onions. Maybe you want more tomatoes. This lends itself to so many possibilities. And of course, talking about the crust a little bit, it is a little bit like flatbread. It's not your traditional pizza crust, but it sure is fun to make and very inexpensive. So I hope this will give you some ideas about making it yourself. I'm just about ready to take it off the grill, but I just wish you could smell it. It smells so good. The basil smells, the onion smell, the salsa smells. Let me take it off and we'll take a look and see how it cuts. I've taken it off the grill, and you can see the crust is firm. And this is probably enough pizza for 2 people, especially if you have a salad along with it. It's about a foot long by, I would say, 8 or 9 inches wide. So it's a good size. So let's take and cut it and see what happens. Okay, can you hear that crunch? It's really crunching as I cut it. So let me take a bite of this. See the runny cheese? Hot. Stringy cheese. Crunchy crust. So good. I need another bite. Yes. So I hope maybe you'll take a try at making pizza on the Power Grill. I don't know that this second try was as successful as the first one. I really enjoyed the taste of both. And I love making dough. Making dough is just kind of therapeutic. So I hope maybe if you get a chance and you've got a power grill, you'll try out the recipe and see what you can do with it. I do appreciate y'all stopping by. If you like this video, you can give it a like down below. If you want to subscribe to my channel, please do that as well. And thanks so much. I really appreciate you coming and taking a look. And we'll see you soon. Nos vemos.